Glenn Greenwald, who blocked me a long time ago on Twitter because I wasn't sufficiently pro-war for him, I think, has a show called System Update with Glenn Greenwald. Hello. And he wore his good tie, and he's wearing it. He's doing Cosby Code. He's wearing it raked to the side, just to annoy everybody so they ignore what he's saying. I haven't watched any of this, but I stumbled upon it. And yeah, Greenwald is a pro-Russia troll. He's been around for a long time, posing as a lefty. But this one was called Glenn Greenwald Analyzes the Reactions to the Horrific Terror Attack in Kabul this morning and debunks the propagandistic talking points used by deep state operatives and their media allies to push the U.S. into indefinite war. Now, who here thinks that in this discussion he will defend Joe Biden's removal of forces from Afghanistan? Do you think he'll go, finally, Biden has the guts to, I will be fascinated. Let's see, shall we? Oh, and do we have to watch an ad about music playing? Why is that hold on a second. Yeah, you saw that, right? Glenn Greenwald's Rumble show opens with an ad from Citibank. Just let that stew for a moment.
Hi, everyone. It's Glenn Greenwald.
Hi. Yeah, you got to worry about... There's always a concern when your opening presents a toughness or a quality element that you don't live up to. First of all, you're doing this clearly with a green screen behind you from your bathroom. I don't know where that light is coming from, but it's coming from above. It's not a good look. You look like... Glenn Greenwald always looks like somebody who used to have a beard and you got used to seeing them that way. And now you're like, I don't know.
With another episode of System Update exclusively.
No, this is the first and only episode, by the way. No one will convince me that another episodes exist.
And I wanted to discuss the horrifying and highly consequential events that took place earlier today in Afghanistan.
You mean the American evacuation that's been incredibly successful at removing over 120,000 Americans and their allies and families from the area, and that soldiers gave their lives making sure that happened?
Assuredly, no. There was at least one, probably more, suicide bombers who
No, there was only one. There was originally thought to be two. There was only one. Just for the record. Listen to the language right now. There was one, probably more. No. The initial report was that there were possibly two. It turned out to be one.
Explosive devices at the airport in Kabul. The current count for American Marines and other soldiers who have died is 12. At least a dozen other Americans have been wounded, and dozens of Afghans, we don't have an exact count, and probably other nationalities died as well in that horrible explosion. And
yeah, just probably.
Of implications, a lot of complexities to what this means for our foreign policy and the war in Afghanistan. But what I wanted to do is kind of take a step back and ensure that no matter what your views are on how we got here, what we should have done differently, if anything, and what we should do going forward, that at the very least, we're not falling prey to propaganda, because there's a lot of propaganda being issued.
And if anybody knows propaganda,
especially by people
it's Glenn's handlers at RT.
Wanted to leave Afghanistan in the first place, who want to continue to squander American lives and taxpayer dollars that go primarily to enriching weapons manufacturers and the arms industry to little to...
And you're going to bring up the fact that one of those persons that you're referencing is not Joseph Robinette Biden.
benefit to the United States, who are exploiting this incident in order to say that not only did we make mistakes up until this point, which is a reasonable view, but now we cannot leave. We need to actually redouble our war in Afghanistan. And I think it's very important to remember that 3 consecutive presidents, Obama, Trump, and Biden, all ran and won by vowing to end the war in Afghanistan, because polls have shown for over a decade.
Wait, which one actually was, whatever, 15 years into it when they got it? Which one? There was no turning point. There was nothing changed. Which guy was that? And which one actually did it? Who was against? There was one of them used to be in another office and was against the surge because it was throwing good money after bad and would ultimately not be effective and wouldn't change a goddamn thing. One of them, somebody else was saying he was wrong about everything. I forget. It all blurs. Is how CIA has it. Yeah, totally.
At large majorities of Americans on a bipartisan basis.
I'm an asset to any organization that means well. Except the Amish. I mean, we're never going to see eye to eye. I like gear too much.
It's long past time to end the war. So this idea of ending the war in Afghanistan was not a precipitous decision by anyone. It was something that the American public has debated over the course of 10 or more years, and that 3 consecutive administrations
when did that happen?
Wanted to do and advocated doing. And remember, it was President Trump who initiated and consecrated negotiations with the Taliban to leave by May 1st.
Initiated and consecrated. How did he do that? They slit a chicken's throat and pour the blood over an altar? Consecrated? What? I think you mean consummated. I think he fucked the deal on its wedding night.
Exchange for their promise, which everyone agrees, including President Trump, they kept not to attack American forces. And it was Joe Biden who made the decision to go forward with this withdrawal. So whatever your views are on whether it should have been done differently, on whether huge mistakes were made, set
those aside
for the moment,
so that you don't get mad at Trump for screwing the pooch.
To at least acknowledge that withdrawing from Afghanistan is something that the American public has been demanding to do, so that we spend our resources on our own country and on Americans, and not in a war that everyone knows has producing.
Glenn's not in America currently, by the way, and hasn't been for years.
Very little. And yet, these people who want to stay are wasting no time exploiting today to try and ensure that we can't leave. Let's just look at a couple of examples, beginning with Senator Sass of Nebraska, who posted a statement.
A Republican. And by the way, notice how the first person Glenn Greenwald chooses to go after is someone that Donald Trump names as an enemy.
Specifically to President Biden.
Is he by any means the only Republican senator who said this? No, but he gets first name checked by Glenn, because Trump calls him Little Ben Sass, and Glenn agrees.
The key paragraph of which reads, "You are the commander-in-chief, sir. Reverse course and fight for our people. This is likely to get worse, and weakness will accelerate the bloodshed. Lord, have mercy on Americans in harm's way." His full statement that he posted was even longer. It was saying, rip up the August 31st deadline that President Trump and President Biden negotiated with the Taliban, which everyone knows, and the Taliban has said if America doesn't leave by the agreed to date, they will initiate hostilities against the United States, which means we would have to not only keep those forces that we have there, but send in a huge amount more to basically restart the war with the Taliban. He then goes on to say, we simply cannot strand Americans behind enemy lines in the new capital city of global jihad, which you can agree with or not. Most people do.
Or not, yeah.
Agree that we have a responsibility to get Americans out, but that doesn't mean, which is what he wants, that we need to send huge numbers of troops in to re-engage the Taliban and restart the war in Afghanistan as though the last 20 years never happened. There's a very similar statement from the Republican leader in the Senate, Mitch McConnell, who says what we all agree with, that is sick.
Also another person that Trump has shit on personally, not unique in his viewpoint, but interesting that Glenn is so far only shitting on people that he has clearance from Trump to shit on in the rhino category.
And enraging to hear that at least 12 U.S. service members have been killed at the hands of terrorists in Kabul. He then goes on to say we need to redouble our global efforts to confront these barbarian enemies who want to kill Americans and attack our homeland. In other words, this war on terror that is now more than 2 decades old, being fought by people who weren't even born when it began, that has put...
Well, yeah, the people who are actually fighting on the other side weren't even born when it began.
Billions of dollars from American taxpayers into the pocket of Mitch McConnell's donors and the military-industrial complex that Dwight Eisenhower warned about back in 1961.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Not only does he not want to reduce it after 20 years, he wants to redouble it. Speaking on behalf of those who fund and donate to his campaign and his status in Washington, and further empowering the deep state. And
so Trump's, well, please, I'm sure you'll get to the point where Trump said we were only going to leave if conditions on the ground were met. And therefore, since conditions on the ground were not met, and by August 31st, they would certainly not be met because we would be attacked. We would stay in longer. I'm sure you're going to bring that up. I'm sure you're going to bring up Trump's statement about keeping Bagram Air Force Base, right?
The CIA and the Pentagon.
Let's see if the next person he attacks is somebody Trump likes.
Both Senator Sass and Senator McConnell are calling for, knowing that all of us have very raw emotions seeing this image of what happened. But there's one propagandistic exhibit that I really wanted to take the time to examine, because it's a masterclass in how the deep state operatives, the Pentagon, the intelligence community tries to manipulate and play on the decency and emotions of the American public to ensure that war never ends. It's an appearance.
Or a general who participated in it is defending his legacy and his opinion about stuff on the news as an alternate view being presented alongside other people who are like, this is a bunch of bullshit, we need to get out, and actually believes what he's saying. But where's the fun in that? Of course he has to be basically a propagandistic automaton sent by the deep state to puppet what he's saying. Because in Glenn's world, nobody really believes what they're saying. This can't be a genuine bullshit opinion on this guy's part. It has to be a propaganda ploy by the deep state. Get fucked, you clown.
CNN earlier.
He's an asshole. We all saw this. Literally, he's so out of step from the American people that the general reaction to this clip, which has been, shown elsewhere, everybody's like, what the fuck? He's just replacing what Donald Rumsfeld would have said if he was still alive.
By H.R. McMaster, the former national security advisor to President Trump, who left with a lot of drama and a
lot of drama. Trump never really liked this guy, even though, Trump listened to him and it's one of the, but Trump didn't want to stay in. McMaster made him.
Conflict with the president he served because he believed that Trump was pursuing foreign policies that in his view were insufficiently confrontational with Russia and Syria, constituted surrender.
Well, in any confrontation, Glenn will see any confrontation we have with Russia and Syria as too much.
Constituted retreat from the world. In other words, he was angry that the person who was elected president, Donald Trump,
who hired him to advise him.
Decisions that the unelected military official in the White House disagreed with. That's who H.R. McMaster.
Sorry. Your advisors are chosen by you. They're both supposed to give you what you want to hear and what you don't want to hear. Disagreeing with your generals is not fucking special. It's integral to the entire process. And your advisors, that's what advisors are there for. They're supposed to present you with ideas you wouldn't have thought of yourself that might work, but then you factor it in and you weigh it against the other possibilities and then you make your own goddamn decisions. Nobody gets points for only being surrounded by people that agree with them or that they agree with. It's an idiotic concept. Secondly, Trump did everything this asshole said. So don't tell me that Trump would have rather, coulda, shoulda, was gonna, but this guy made him and he was too, and then piss off.
He's also somebody, it's worth remembering, who was part of this horde.
By the way, if Barry Manilow couldn't sing and worked as an office manager,
of senior military officials that from almost the beginning of President Trump's administration, the corporate media was insisting these were the people, not the elected president. These were the people, these generals and admirals, who are going to save America from the president we had just elected by undermining and subverting the decisions, the foreign policy decisions of Donald Trump. This is what the media narrative was.
Yeah, poor Donald Trump. I mean, he brings these folks in to serve him, but he doesn't know better.
6 months into President Trump's presidency in August 2017, Politico heralding them. Trump's generals are trying to save the world, starting with the White House. That was the media's view of people like...
No, it wasn't. It was an opinion piece written in Politico. Did you read this? Glenn, dipshit, read the next line, because I will be shocked if you will. The next line is, the president has handed huge power to a group of military officers, and they're out to solve two big problems: Obama's policies and their boss. Did you see that, Glenn? Did you see the media's view? Was the media's view that the guys that Trump has handed huge power to? He basically just said, do what the fuck you want.
McMaster and General Mattis and General Kelly, who became Trump's chief of staff, that they were going to, as general...
Yeah, how did they become Trump's chief of staff? Did they trip on a White House rug and then someone was stamping a document that said next chief of staff and it just hit their hand like, oh, tag, you're it? Or were they chosen by this dickhead? Stop acting like it was a goddamn accident. Trump chose who he wanted, and he made decisions based on what they said. And half the time he told people that he didn't listen to them anyways.
Or senior military officials prevent Donald Trump from carrying out the wishes of the American people.
That's what happened. Yeah. Trump wanted to. He really did. Poor Donald Trump. Poor President of the United States of America couldn't make these decisions. Now, Biden comes in. Same number of people have made the same arguments over the years. Biden's heard all of them. His generals were saying, you know, we need more time. We should probably wait till the winter, telling him the same shit they told Obama, same shit they told Trump. And for some reason, for some magic reason, these generals just don't have the power to stop Joe Biden. It must be the ice cream. They can't just, it's just so intoxicating. They can't stop Biden from making this decision, but they could. Fucking hell.
The very definition of a deep state, a military...
No, it isn't. Deep state is people who are there and you can't get them out. Bureaucrats who are entwined in the system throughout. These are people he hired as his chief of staff. That's not the deep state, you fucking moron. Oh my God, this guy's dumb. No, he blocked me years ago for pointing out these very things. This is a poor Trump, kiss Trump's ass video posing as an anti-war video. Trump would have gotten out. Guys, he would have. But the deep state stopped him. And by deep state, we mean the people he hired as his advisors and then made his chief of staff. Are you fucking kidding me? What is this dipshit pity party? And your evidence is an opinion piece in Politico where the first line contradicts your entire argument in the second line.
Permanent power class in Washington, accountable democratically to nobody.
Yes, no. They are absolutely accountable democratically. The person who hires them if he takes their advice and their advice is shit, loses the next election. Accountable to nobody. What the fuck are you talking about?
Serves as a backstop whenever the elites of a country think that voters chose wrong. And at the
He did. He's the backstop. He made the decisions. Look at this. Look, honest to God, Glenn Greenwald is a Trump apologist, pure and simple, first and foremost, and always.
Time that they were calling for McMaster and these other generals to save the country from the choices that we as voters had made.
We. So you voted for Trump, Glenn? Because there was a big bunch of we that said, fuck you. But we as the voters had made. So, okay, now we know that Glenn voted for Trump twice. Okay.
They were simultaneously mocking as some kind of deranged conspiracy theory, the idea that the United States has a deep state.
It is. It's stupid. It's fucking stupid. It doesn't have a deep state. You're an asshole. This is ridiculous. It's cartoonish. It's the poor man's Illuminati. Go fuck yourself. I'm sick of this deep state nonsense. There are bureaucrats in there who watch the legal aspect of what's going on, know the law, and try to keep stuff within bounds. And they make all the, like, I'm president now, I should be able to run roughshod over all this bullshit, Nixonian nonsense. All those folks get mad.
At all. They were calling for the deep state to undermine and subvert and sabotage.
He's not the deep state, fucko. Honest to God. None of these guys are deep state. They're military or ex-military, but he brought them in as advisors, and then he made one of them his fucking chief of staff. Fuck off with this deep state nonsense.
Trump, while simultaneously insisting that there was no such thing as a deep state and only
there's no deep state. You're an asshole.
Conspiracy theorists believe that, and McMaster
It's true. You're a dipshit. And nothing makes it clear. Like, other people have made a better case for the existence of a deep state than Glenn, I suppose. Anyone could. Anyone could. But listen, look who he's pointing at. If you're going to say deep state, let me kind of give people a little tip. If you're going to blame the deep state for the shitty decisions that Trump made, bring up some people we've never heard of and that Trump didn't hire. Right? Right? That seems to make sense, doesn't it? Does that not seem logical? Glenn, maybe, just maybe, if you're trying to blame the deep state, bring up a picture and don't put on it everyone that Trump brought on himself. Oh, we hit 666. Everybody, don't forget 666 in the chat. Any way you can, that's lovely. It's a great way to help the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe, give a thumbs up, and all that. There you go.
Key to that, because he's long been revered by the national security blob, the deep state, and the corporate press.
And Trump, who hired him and touted bringing him on board and thought he was from Central Casting and is a fucking moron.
Washington, and he still is, which is why he took center stage today at this crucial moment. Now,
did he take center stage, or was he one of many people, including people from the past administration, who differed? Yeah, I'm deep state. That's totally true. I'll show you how deep. You want to see some deep state? Turn around.
To note that McMaster is also somebody who has long opposed withdrawal from Afghanistan, not just under President Biden, but also.
The president's former national security advisor says in a 60 Minutes interview that withdrawing American forces from Afghanistan is an unwise policy. Okay. Trump hired him. And, like I said, we all knew he was an asshole. Trump moved him up.
President Trump. In fact, he spent all of 2020 denouncing Trump for surrendering and retreating and giving over Afghanistan to the terrorists as though that country is the property of the United States and we should spend our money not to improve the lives of American citizens.
All right, I understand. The voice is getting annoying. I apologize, chat room. Don't worry. We'll go to somebody with a deeper, more masculine voice after this, like Ben Shapiro or Mark Levin.
home, but to improve Kandahar and Kabul. Here, for example, is just one of many examples from Politico in September of 2020, headline HR.
And again, do you only source Politico? Don't you work for a fucking paper? Thank you, Amber.
Trump over Taliban talks. So he's somebody who way before this incident today was opposed to leaving Afghanistan.
As were a bunch of Biden's advisors and generals as well. And you know what? He still fucking did it. So where's your deep state now, see?
Who has long been abusing his position to try and ensure that the hawkish policies that he wants, that the American people rejected in polls by electing Trump, would prevail.
By electing Trump. You know who stopped everything from happening under Trump that the people who elected Trump to do wanted to have happen? You know who stopped that? Trump. Donald Trump. Grown man, president of the United States, the decider in all these situations.
Let's look at this incredibly revealing interview that he did on CNN today, where he not only disseminated immense propaganda, but also...
Yeah, we would just call it bullshit. Immense propaganda. Fuck you. This is propaganda. Because it's one thing for Master who's, again, a hammer who thinks everything is a nail and really believes this. He really believes he's one of these, we should just keep people. And there's a bunch of people in the government that, elected officials, Republicans, who believe we should stay there or at least have a military force stabilizing the government for God knows how long and keep going. And it is against the will of the American people. But at the same time, they genuinely believe that maybe the voters are wrong about this. And as a leader, I should be able to buck the will of the people because they may not see all the angles that I see, right? That's a real argument. That's not propaganda. That's just somebody who's deluded in their own system. Trying to convince everyone that the people that Trump hired are the deep state and that Trump himself was powerless to override what they were saying, that's propaganda. This is propaganda. This is distinctly propaganda.
Invented things out of whole cloth.
How deep is your love? I really need to know. Somebody said that in the chat room.
Knowing that emotions are so raw on the part of Americans to try and convince us that we need to continue to fight the Taliban.
This is what we're facing, and this is what happens when you surrender to jihadist terrorists. And I think, Jim, what's important about this, you may hear this as...
Gee, it's almost like that Trump hired this dude because he's a douchebag who wants to destroy everything he sees.
Or whatever.
Hal, if you're not going to sing it, what are you doing? I'm sorry.
While we're living in a world of fools, breaking us down, and they all should let us be. We belong to you and me, not leaving here.
Right, there you go. It is the Brothers Gibb. That's where the Bee Gees comes from. The name used to be Brothers Gibb, and the big B and the big G for Brothers Gibb, and nobody read Ruthers and Ib under it. They just saw the B and the G and called them the Bee Gees.
Exist in an ecosystem along the Afghanistan-Pakistan border and now all across Afghanistan, in which they share people and resources. Siraj Haqqani is the military commander of the Taliban, and he's a central figure in al-Qaeda. This is a myth, right, that the Taliban is separate from al-Qaeda and these other groups.
Now, listen to what he said there. This is a myth that ISIS-K...
Yeah, we heard that. No. Hold on, asshole. Okay. Can we back up? Let's back up. Because I don't know if he's going to correct himself. But let's all go through this. We have another episode of How Dumb This Dumb. Watch what H.R. McMaster, who is an asshole and is a jingoist warmonger in a lot of ways and thinks that bombs and bullets are the solution to everything, which is why he joined the military, why he's a general, and why we have civilian oversight over the military, so that while they can give their opinion and they do deeply feel it, and they really are a singular way of dealing with stuff, you can override them with civilian rule. That's why we have it in the United States. That's how these guys are supposed to act. But listen to what he says. And then listen to what Glenn Greenwald says he says.
Central figure in al-Qaeda. This is a myth, right, that the Taliban is separate from al-Qaeda and these other groups.
Now, listen to what he said there. This is a myth that ISIS-K, which everyone is alleging was the group behind the suicide attack in Afghanistan. He's saying it's a myth that that group has any separation from either al-Qaeda or the Taliban. In other
That's
words,
not what he said. Back up.
try and ensure that the hawkish policies that he wants, that the American people rejected in polls and by electing Trump, would prevail.
And by electing Biden, and Biden actually made the fucking decision and didn't hire a guy like H.R. McMaster to tell him what the fuck to do.
So let's look at this incredibly revealing interview that he did on CNN today.
Yeah.
Where he not only
Let's look
disseminated
at
immense
it.
propaganda,
It's
but
very
also
important. Yeah.
just invented things.
Yeah,
out of
they
whole
just,
cloth.
he just
Knowing
makes
that
it up.
Emotions are so
He knows
raw on
that
the part of
people are,
Americans to try and
I mean, basically people are beaten up so emotionally that they are going to hear words and they're going to override all their ethics, their morals, their ideas, their ability to, think ethically about a circumstance or even their logic. And they're going to go, oh.
that we need to continue to fight the Taliban.
This is what we're facing.
By the way, I want to back up and play the whole clip just so you understand.
When you surrender to jihadist terrorists. And I think, Jim, what's important about this, you may hear this is ISIS-K or whatever, but these terrorist organizations exist in an ecosystem along the Afghanistan-Pakistan border.
You may hear this is ISIS-K.
Across Afghanistan, in which they share people and resources. Siraj Haqqani is the military commander of the Taliban, and he's a central figure in al-Qaeda. This is a myth, right, that the Taliban is separate from al-Qaeda and these other groups.
Now, listen to what he said there. This is a myth that ISIS-K, which everyone is alleging was the group behind the suicide attack in Afghanistan.
Everyone's alleging. They claimed credit for it.
It's a myth that that group has any separation.
And by the way, it's ISIS-X.
Al-Qaeda or the Taliban. In other words, he's revitalizing, rejuvenating the script that led to this war in the first place, that the Taliban were in bed with the terrorists who kill us. In that case, it was Al-Qaeda. In this case, it was ISIS-K. The reason we know this is a complete lie is because ISIS-K is a group that has been at war with the Taliban over the course of many years. It somehow emerged in Afghanistan and in parts of Pakistan. No one
somehow
funded it. No one knows who created it, but we know.
But it probably happened as soon as Biden took office.
It was a force that largely was devoted to fighting the Taliban on the grounds that they're not extreme enough, on the grounds that they're not religiously fanatics enough.
Right. We all know the news. Again, how is this? You're getting off the script, Glenn. How is this not Trump's fault? Please tell me. I need to know.
This is the reality. You can go and see media reports of battles between ISIS-K and the Taliban. And yet
right, which is why everybody saw McMaster talk and were like, who is this asshole? Who cares?
McMaster trying to convince you that they're all one and the same, that if ISIS-K attacks America, it means the Taliban has too. Let's listen to what else he said.
I would not be surprised in any way if ISIS-K was used, their Kabul attack network was used as a cutout for the Taliban, so they can humiliate us on the way out and still continue to play us, because I don't think they think we're serious.
There he is, just saying, not declaratively, but saying, I wouldn't be surprised if, meaning he has no basis.
That's classic propaganda talk. I remember those big Mao posters that said, I wouldn't be surprised if Chinese workers are everything.
However, for believing, he's just trying to put that out there into the...
Yeah, doesn't make him deep state, just makes him somebody Trump hired who's full of shit. Yes, he's full of shit. We know he's full of shit. This is not example of the, again, also, what are you showing? This looks like a UFO landing.
Ecosphere to your brains, essentially, that you should believe that this was not done by ISIS-K, but by the Taliban.
Hold on. How is everything like a pickup artist plan? McMaster is an asshole, and he's to some degree an imbecile when it comes to the geopolitical value of the Afghan conflict. And his own belief system is muddied by his own xenophobic reactions and bigotry. And that's clear listening to him. But how is his expression of his own idiotic ideas some sort of mass hypnotizing ray that comes out of his fucking forehead that all of us, if you just hear, they use the words to scare. I can't think on my own. I must, to the point where the natural response is, we need to stay in Afghanistan, and this was all Trump's fault. Like that's what he thinks he's undoing.
As if the Taliban has any motive in having this violent attack, which is the only thing that could prevent what they want most.
Well, they do. Stupid. Both of you are dumb. This isn't because of McMaster's idea. The reasoning why ISIS might be allowed to break through and they might let some people slip by or not give a shit is because ultimately the majority of the people that are being blown up are the Afghans that are leaving. And if a bomb goes off, then people will be more or less apt to go to the airport and escape the country. And the Taliban is having a brain drain right now. And they're afraid that everybody of worth is going to leave the goddamn country. So if somebody blows something up, it does ultimately help them. And the idea, even though McMaster's vision of what the cause would be is too personal and stupid, the idea that they wouldn't do something like that is absurd in context. And it's not because he's the deep state and you're a right-wing tool hiding in a, in left-wing sheepskin. It's because you're both too fucking stupid to recognize that there are secondary wins from even losses in those kind of circumstances, and that in that area of the world, that's almost all they deal with.
Which is the United States to leave their country. The people who are hurt
most. But it's not only Americans that are leaving from the airport, you dipshit. Again, two idiots arguing with each other. And by the way, anybody notice how everybody's stealing my show methodology? Anybody notice that my way of doing things has really picked up steam of late? Hi. Some people have even converted their show the way they used to do it to my format. If only they had the charm to make it sustainable. I don't think they do, but there it is.
This terrorist attack today, aside from the people who were killed, is the Taliban. This is what they have been spending a full year or more ensuring did not happen. President Trump has been touring the country since he left the White House, praising the Taliban, not morally. No one thinks the Taliban is moral.
No, obviously not. Only praising them in that he can make an escape deal with them and fuck the Afghan government and the military and all the women and children who were there, so that they're screwed as much as possible. And of course, hamstringing the special immigrant visa process so that none of these assholes can get out. I mean, am I right? Who wants Afghans in the country, right, Glenn?
As rational thinkers, as good faith negotiators, as tough negotiators, and particularly praising them for
He imitated them grunting and said they're good killers. Fucking hell.
honoring their agreement that they made with him in Doha not to attack American soldiers as a condition for the United States leaving. They've demonstrated for a long time, not that they're moral. No one's praising their morality. No one's praising their honor. What we're looking at is the fact that they...
Well, no, you are, if they uphold their end of a bargain, that is a form of honor. That is a descriptive for an honor. So, yeah, you are. And even then, this is a Mexican standoff. It's not, they're not holding up their part of a bargain. There's an element of mutual assured destruction.
Demonstrated the capacity to act in their own rational self-interest. Doing a terrorist attack like this, hiding behind ISIS, would be the worst possible thing they could possibly do. There's
bullshit. Again, This furthers the reason why the U.S. would want to get out. Any clamoring about sticking around from the American people in general would definitely be muted by some sort of an explosion in Kabul, especially as the Taliban has taken over. So bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. And secondly, again, it would scare their own citizens from going to the airport, or anybody else who was trying to escape from going to the airport at that particular time. And that's the one conduit in this time frame to get out of it. So it would create more of a bottleneck and stop Afghans who have worked with us or who want to leave the country through commercial flights, because there's another part of the airport where they're not just leaving that way, from leaving the country and never coming back. And therefore the fucking sanitation system and the cell towers and everything start to fall apart, because everybody who knows how to do anything worth a living will leave the area, and I'm not even calling it a country, will leave to go to an actual country where they will survive. So yes, there's a reason why they would let ISIS through. And yes, there is a reason why it could be their own bombs. And there's 100 reasons. And who gives a fuck? It's not going to keep us there. And McMaster is not some sort of deep state propaganda exercise from within the current government. He's who Trump hired to advise him, and they're both assholes. And you're only doing this so that we all let Trump off the hook for the decision he refused to make because he's a ballless scrotum, you tool.
Zero evidence for it, which means CNN should not be broadcasting.
Bullshit. Bullshit. And they can broadcast whatever the fuck they want. It's a free press. And people can weigh it against it. And they can listen to people like me who actually can think beyond the binary black and white narrative that you and he are presenting to the world, as if, why would you, how could anyone kill someone with a badminton racket? It's just not possible. First of all, you'd never be able to play badminton with it again. Secondly, Jesus Christ.
That kind of a claim, which is incredibly inflammatory at this moment. Obviously,
no, it isn't. It's only inflammatory if you take McMaster seriously. And the last guy that did was Donald Trump.
Man is behind it. That would change a lot of people's thinking about whether we should leave. And they just let him say that with no evidence.
They let him say it, guys. They let him say his opinion with no evidence and let everybody hear, oh shit, this is who Trump hired to advise him. And this is why Trump never had the nuts to get us the fuck out? Gee whiz. Trump must be an asshole.
With a mountain of evidence suggesting that it's false.
They think we're serious people, Jim. I mean, so our weakness is encourage them to be emboldened. And of course, they're going to have, as you mentioned, a safe haven support base, access to resources that will make them extraordinarily.
Yeah, you mean like Yemen and Central Africa and all the other places where Al-Qaeda and ISIS and people like Boko Haram have done terrible, 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 terrible things that we either drone strike, drop soldiers in temporarily, like when we got Osama bin Laden, and then get them the fuck out of there so they don't stick around. But we should build bases everywhere, right?
As well has the ability now to say, hey, look, we're winning, right? We've established the Islamic Emirate in Khorasan. Come to our cause, much like ISIS did when they recruited 30,000 fighters at the drop of a hat, right? Once they took over territory.
Yeah, corralled them into an area where Obama killed them mostly with smart bombs. Yeah. Hey, everybody, come over here. Stand right under this satellite. Yeah, it was a great, brilliant plan. ISIS.
The size of Britain.
Here's a good idea. We should all carry flags and dress the same. No one will see us.
Iraq and in Syria. And then, of course, we had to go back, Jim. So now what I would just ask, what was it worth it, really? What would be a better outcome? A sustained commitment of...
Everything he's talking about there, the emergence of ISIS, the emergence of these attacks.
It's all deep state stuff. Like, this is what the deep state wants.
Has all been taking place while the United States was in Afghanistan. Do you see the illogic of what he's saying? He's citing things.
Yes, it's illogical, but it is also a person that Donald Trump chose to advise him and followed the assurances of because he thought it was fucking macho. And then by the time he got around to any potential getting out, he couldn't bring himself to do it because no matter when you left, it was going to look like shit. He was a political animal and a coward. And you're protecting him from his own decisions because this whole video is about you making sure that nobody blames Trump for his decisions.
Happened while the U.S. was there as an argument as to why the U.S. can't leave. The U.S. being there hasn't prevented any of these attacks. There are thousands upon thousands of Afghan civilians who have died during the last 10 years, the last 20 years of the war, often because of U.S. bombs, but also because of these groups.
No, not often because of U.S. bombs. Unless you're like, they retaliate. We bombed a bunch of terrorists and we bombed a bunch of Taliban people. So they went and killed a bunch of civilians because they were pissed. And so technically it's kind of like a bank shot.
That the U.S. can't possibly solve. We cannot fix Afghanistan, even if we sent in 100,000 troops.
There is no Afghanistan to fix. And yes, if we sent in 100,000 troops and we straight bombed the fuck out of it, we killed every Afghan in there, we could make it the 51st state. It's not about can, it's about why and will and no. Jesus.
What this 20-year failed war demonstrates is that we cannot fix other countries. He doesn't want to go there or stay or redouble our efforts because he thinks we can fix Afghanistan. He knows we can. He, though, is part of this class.
No, he clearly thinks he can. He's not a propagandist for the deep state. He's a fucking dumbass.
Benefits and power and profit by having you send your kids to wars that never end and your taxpayer dollars going to his friends in Raytheon and General Dynamics.
And so at what point in this video are you going to praise Joe Biden for finally bringing it to an end and sticking to the exit date that he set? Glenn, right now, in this moment, you have about a minute and change left in this video. And this whole time, you've been trying to, it wasn't Trump's fault. All these deep state people. Oh, all these deep state people, they made him, okay? Like, he so wanted to do it, but they wouldn't let him, you know? It's terrible. I don't understand that. I don't understand. It's terrible. This isn't Trump's fault. He was just the president of the United States. I don't understand. Anyways, I hate Joe Biden. He's a socialist.
And having the CIA and the Pentagon and the NSA get more and more powerful. This is the propaganda.
No. There are members of the CIA and the NSA and the DNI that are against this, that want to get the fuck out, that have been arguing for this. They were overridden by the generals that Trump brought in during his 4 years. There has not been a pure consensus at any time about this. It's just the people who stay in won the argument most of the time. Now that Biden's in, suddenly they're not, but it's not. He doesn't get credit for it from Glenn. No, it's just, Trump would have done it. He would have done it, but the big mean deep state. With the deep state.
To which we've been subjected for 20 years. It's the reason why this war that is a failure and a fraud has never ended. And
it is ending. It is ending, fucko.
They're so eager to immediately jump on this to now exploit it. So I think that's really the key. We're all going to have differences of opinion that can be
Hey, asshole. Here's something that we probably agree on, but you don't have the nuts to say. Biden's getting us out. And all of this clamoring about 20 years of war, and it was Raytheon and the fucking military industrial complex and the deep state kept us in, and all that argument, no matter how real everybody else thinks it is, Glenn, you and I both know you're a fucking liar. You are not capable of admitting that as all this clamoring about the deep state and the military industrial complex is all bullshit, because you cannot bring yourself to admit that Biden is getting us out, and that would be the end of it. You're a clown. This is a Trump apology video from Glenn Greenwald.
As we debate it, once America gets home from this war, about whether there were mistakes made in the planning, whether there really was any way to withdraw from a war that we actually lost.
We didn't lose it. We decided it wasn't worth it. I will stick to that. This is a bunch of bullshit. Wasn't a war at this point. We were nation building. It's just silly. Like, again, even talking about it like a war that we lost plays into what, how is that different from what the fuck McMaster was saying? Well, if we go in next time, we better fucking win. Like that, we moved past the war part of this a long time ago. We were holding up a government and holding up a military for the last 10 fucking years, if not 12. That's not a war. We did not lose a war just now or leave a war. This was not even our war. And saying it is just as jingoistic and just as warmongery as anything that McMaster said. You moron.
It being chaotic and ugly. Maybe there were better ways. I haven't heard very many things, whether we kept Bagram Air Base
Thank
or
you,
anything
Pam.
else. I'm not convinced that it would have.
Maybe if we kept Bagram, that's what Trump just said. Did you see that? Fucking hell. This asshole just watched the Sebastian Gorka thing and is trying to find a way to make that work in his head. Oh, maybe. I don't know. Trump brought up if we'd have just kept Bagram, maybe that would have worked. I don't know. Think about it. You can't make the case that we had to leave and this was the end of it and it needed to end and this was all for the military-industrial complex and still think we're going to stay and hold Bagram Air Force Base. What the fuck are you talking about?
Prevented us from being in this situation. But whatever else is true, we should not allow liars like H.R. McMaster, propagandists like Senator McConnell and Senator Sass, who never want wars to end, to manipulate the emotions that we're all feeling.
They're not. They're not manipulating their emotions. Your emotions are your responsibility. American public, hi, my name's Hal Sparks, and I'm here to tell you that how you feel about shit is up to you. And it comes after your decisions about things. You decide what something means, and then you have a feeling about it. Unless it's like a spider landing on your neck, and then you just have a reaction to it. And even that's not an emotion, that's more fight or flight. But if your friend calls you a dickhead or a stranger calls you a dickhead, the word's the same, but why are the feelings different? Because you know your friend means something different than the stranger might mean, and therefore you have made a decision about how you're going to feel about that circumstance before it actually hits you. So H.R. McMaster does not have mind control over your fucking emotions. He doesn't. But Glenn Greenwald wants you to think he does. Propaganda. Oh my God, it's propaganda. They have control over they manipulate the electorate. For fuck's sake. Ignorance manipulates the American electorate more than any propaganda ever could. And meanwhile, this entire video put forth by Glenn Greenwald is indeed propaganda. This is a Trump apology video.
Now, whatever we decide needs to be the byproduct of rational discourse, and that's the opposite of what this is.
Hosted by Glenn Greenwald. Really? Executive producer Glenn Greenwald. Music provided by Glenn Greenwald. Glenn Greenwald, the Glenn Greenwald band plays the music. Rodrigo Lima, Renata Rocha, Rafael Paiva, because he's in Brazil, where is the country that had the most slaves from the transatlantic slave trade. Of all the countries in the transatlantic slave trade, the majority, the largest number of slaves went to Brazil. I'm sure Glenn will bring that up in a future video about his chosen country of residence. Still an American citizen, but whatever. There you go.